Hi, my name is Dave Irvine, the Executive Director at the Highlands Center for Natural History, and this year we are celebrating 25 years of our legal incorporation as the Highlands Center. And of course, our roots stretch back to the early 1970s at the early Community Nature Center site. But through all that time, we have been helping people discover the wonders of nature, and all age groups do that. As part of this celebration year, today I am sitting with one of our founders, Mr. Tom Benson, here in the Key Keffer classroom with a beautiful mural behind us. And we're just going to learn a little bit about the early days, Tom. And thank you so much for being with us. And why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about how you got involved in the Highlands Center and all the many different roles that you've played over this time.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, it started with the Highlands Center I started as a docent. My late wife, Lois, and I had been a docent over in California, and when we moved here in 1993, I saw this little article in the Courier advertising for people that might be interested in working at the Nature Center. And Lois kind of rolled her eyes, but we went out there and went through the training, and I became a docent, and that's how it started. And then Nicole realized that the Nature Center was not really big enough for what she had in mind. She had a vision, and we could hear a lot of noise and traffic around there and so forth. So we were looking for a site that was better and more remote. But, and I used to tell people, up until that time I had some free time, but then I met Nicole, and so that finished my free time there, because she got a small group of us together, and that's how I got involved as a docent, and then with the idea of helping Nicole get the Highlands Center started.
So tell us about some of those early challenges that you were part of and overcame to get us to.
Yeah, there were, of course, finding a site was probably one of the first real challenges that we had, and Nicole and I and Dwayne Warwick, we looked at several places, Storm Ranch, the Thumb Butte, several locations. And we kept coming back to this. And Dwayne Warwick played a big part in that. He had recently retired from the Forest Service. And so we made an application for a special use permit for this site. We asked for 360 acres. They cut us back down to 80, and but they said, don't let that constrain you. If you want to move out a little bit, go ahead, which we've done, and it's never been a problem. But that was probably the first, not a challenge, well, it was a challenge to find the proper site. And the beauty of the site that we found is that it has the woodland, it has a riparian area, it even has a small grass area, it has chaparral, so it has all of the factors that we needed to teach what we were teaching. So that was, it really worked out very well. Another challenge, very briefly, was what do we call ourselves? Because at that time, we were part of the Community Nature Center, and we realized we couldn't carry that name with us, so we had to choose another name. And we finally came up with the Highlands Center for Natural History.
And you've been involved in a lot of different roles with the programs of the Highlands Center. Yeah. Is there any particular, what we used to refer to as mission moments, that stand out in your mind while you were in those roles?
Well, one of the things that stood out to me thinking about that, actually you're right, there were several mission moments. They were just fun times. But I was, as a new docent, I wasn't sure whether I was cut out to do this job. And but Nicole had a very good training for us, and so I had this little group of kids. We would take a class. There would be maybe 27 kids in a class, and we'd break it into thirds, and so you'd have maybe 8 or 9 kids in your group. And the first time I sort of taught on my own, at the break point, we said, now you're going to change your leader, which is what we do. And this little girl came up and grabbed my leg and said, no, we want to go with Tom. So at that time, I kind of thought, well, maybe I could, at least I got one fan, and maybe I can continue to do this. But it was interesting to me that, first of all, I think the kids liked having a male as a docent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you kind of sense that. And so that was one of those moments when I realized that, yes, I probably could do this, and it's worth doing.
Yeah, that's great. We always have trouble finding male docents, and you're such wonderful role models when you do that.
Yeah, the kids need that.
Yeah. Was there any particular project that comes to mind that you kind of were involved with that you look back on very proudly of today?
Well, actually, all of that was a lot of fun. I mean, you can imagine what it's like to start some organization like that from scratch, and people didn't know us from some Scottish rights group or something like that. They'd see Highlands Center, and in fact, so to gather up people that would support us, we started out with who are our natural partners, and there are several natural partners, including Prescott College, and so we kind of made sure that they knew what we were doing, and they all supported us. And of course, the other one is the Forest Service itself.
Yeah,
they once the Forest Service people got to know us, they realized that we were doing a lot of things for them that they frankly didn't have the manpower to do, like forest interpretation. And so it's turned out to be a wonderful collaboration. And people like Dwayne, retired from the Forest Service, Mike King, Ernie Del Rio, all of these people were Malcolm Hamilton. All of them were very supportive of what we were doing at the time.
And that continues on today. You laid a great foundation that we've kind of just kept building on with the Forest Service.
In fact, I think it's even grown since that time. Once we've gotten to each other, that trust among us has really grown the organization significantly.
Yeah. So as you think back to some of those special moments, that you played a role in, what's kept you kind of being involved? You were the first president of the Highlands Center of Natural History, and you are still involved now, 25 plus years later. So what's kept you involved?
You know, that's an interesting question, but easy to answer, actually, frankly. First of all, the mission statement that we developed way back, whereas in fact I lived in Timber Ridge at the time, and as I recall, we developed that either in our house or at the clubhouse for Timber Ridge. But that mission statement has pretty well stood the test of time, and the more I work with people, the more I realize how important that mission is. And it's actually becoming more important today, and we'll go over that a little bit later, but that's helped me stay involved. But the other thing, which is even more interesting, is that I've met some of the neatest people over the years. Nicole, Faith, Joan, yourself, all of these people that have come into the Highlands Center organization and made a contribution. I wouldn't trade the relationships that I've developed over the years with anybody. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you have played such a role in that, and part of that family. One of the fathers of the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Highlands Center, as you will surely agree. The Highlands Center is not just 2 or 3 people. It's the Highlands Center is just a whole lot of people over the years that saw that mission statement and said, we want to be part of that. And they came in and made great contributions. and it continues to this day.
It's a community, and I would say that for myself, that mission statement is what drew me here.
Yeah.
15 years ago. So you did an amazing job.
A quick story, when we were interviewing for the director, we had a cutoff date, and your resume came in a day later. Yeah. But I read it and said, we better talk to this guy. He's got the right idea about what we want to do. And of course, we made the right choice for sure.
Well, it's been my honor.
Yeah.
So tell me, if you think about looking ahead for the Highlands Center, what particularly excites you of what the Highlands Center could do, in the future?
I want to take a little bit of time to answer this question, because
Sure.
if I would have said early on to these people, this is what we might want to be doing with the Highlands Center someday in the future, I think they would have looked at me with a kind of a jaundiced eye and said, you got to be kidding. But what happened is that here we have this beautiful site, and one day as a naturalist, I was leading a walk, and a guy came up to me at the end and he said, I run Chapter 5, which is a recovery home. Excuse me. And he said, would you be interested in taking some of my clients on a hike? Mm-hmm. And I said, sure. But little did I realize the value to these people that are recovering, the value of getting them outside into nature and just basically talking about nature. And they really responded. And I would also spend a little bit of time, I first should say that one of the employees at that time was Christina, and she came up to me and said, I've had some experience teaching this stuff. So we teamed up, and it was a great period of time. And then Christina left for better things, and so I started filling in the part that Christina would do with some of the things that I would talk about. And one of the clients one day, I would always say, I'm not a therapist, I'm just an old guy with some life experiences, and some guy kind of made that OGS, old guy stuff. And the feedback I got was one day, one guy said, are we going to do any OGS today? And so I began to realize again that, well, maybe this is something that can be done. Yeah. But the experience with Chapter 5, men and women, and seeing how they react when they're out. And first of all, the biggest discovery was these are just good people that made some mistakes. They're not bad people. And to see how they respond to the being outside is really gratifying. And so that turned into, one day I began to realize that not only are the people that are in recovery homes we're missing out, but we have now this wonderful discovery garden, and it's not used very much during the week, as much as we'd like to. And there's a whole population, 32.5% of the people in Prescott area are over 65. And we know, they're not getting outside enough, they're not getting enough vitamin D, and many of them are lonely. Mm-hmm. And I had just put on a recent webinar for Mariel at MatForce, and realized what a serious problem loneliness was. So that's when I'm getting around to this project. That's when I decided that it would be take some of the same things that we're doing with the recovery home people and put it together for a program for people 65 or 60, 65, and go from there. And so that's where this course on life enrichment that I talk about is we're doing now. Yeah. But then, if I could keep going, then one of the ladies who runs this organization called Court Diversion, which is where people that have made a mistake but the district attorney feels that maybe they're not really a lost cause. We don't want to put them to trial, and they give them the opportunity to participate in the court diversion program. And that means that if they follow all those steps, and they're pretty rigid, but if they follow all those steps, at the end, they will erase their felony charge or misdemeanor charge and waste a record, and they'll have a clean record to go forward. And so Erin Ortega, the lady that runs it, I had been a speaker over there with those people, and she said, "I'd like to come out and visit you." And she saw what I was doing with the life enrichment. She said, "Let's do that for these people." And so now we're about ready to launch this in April, this April. And this will be just a tremendous use of our facility, and it has this beautiful benefit of keeping people out of jail and saving a lot of money for the state, but more importantly, literally turning lives around.
Yeah, really, all those examples really speaks to the healing power and therapeutic power of nature, and that, you know, that we need nature as much as the natural world needs us to take care of it.
Of all of the hikes that I've led, and you've led many too, no matter who they are, and I've had deaf people, blind people, I've had kids from the inner city of Phoenix. Everyone, you just feel that they feel better at the end of the day by being outside. And so.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you for taking this time to visit with us, and thank you for all your many years. You're my role model if I ever retire. You're going to be my role model for retirement because you've done so much.
Well, I appreciate that, but there is one thing I would like to add, and that is that, you know, some people go through life and they worry about whether they made a difference. Docents, volunteers, naturalists at the Highlands Center, we don't have to worry about that. We know we made a difference.
We have probably to more lives than you have ever imagined. So
yeah, well, we hope to keep doing it for a long, long time. That's for sure. My motto is, as you know, is that if you're not dead, you're not done.
Yeah, that's a great motto, and you exemplify that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
In your life. So
I would recommend that anybody, any male or female that really thinks that this might be something for them, but they just don't have the background, just come out and volunteer, and we'll train them. We'll give them the information that they need, and we won't go any faster than they want to go as far as leading groups. But it can be a wonderful opportunity for any retiree that can. The only requirement is you got to be able to get down on second grade or fourth grade level, which for some people is a little difficult. But there's a lot of young retirees around there that have no problem doing that. So it's a very rewarding thing to do.
Well, thanks. Thank you for doing that for so well for so many years. And and this place continues to what it is today, a large part because of what you've done and what you've contributed.
I have no doubt that the Highlands Center will perpetuate itself into the future big time. I mean, because right now, the needs for getting people out in the outdoors and nature is even greater than it's ever been before.
It is. Well, thank you, and thank you all for watching and being part of this, and I hope you will check back throughout this 25th anniversary year as we talk to more founding folks and folks who have had a great impact here at the Highlands Center. And you can always learn more about what we do at the Highlands Center by going to our website at highlandscenter.org. Thank you very much, and have a great day.